This is propaganda live.
I only suggest how to think and how to vote.
Extraordinary cultural moment, already iconic. We love you, you're welcome here.
I almost sound like a conspiracy theorist, but it's a bit late now.
They don't want to have a conversation and debate because they're lying. And this is a matter now of fact and record.
Trump is like Hitler. Let me count the ways.
I'm a Nazi, actually. And I've kept it down till now, but this is my chance.
God, it's propaganda. Did you guess it? I feel that Christ may have had a better vision.
Bastards, aren't they? I mean, you can't watch too much of this without realising they're absolute bastards. Let's go full screen on Russell.
This is On Brand, a podcast where we discuss the ideas and antics of one Russell Brand. I'm Al Worth, and each week I go through an episode of Stay Free with Russell Brand in order to dissect and debunk it. And today we'll be covering Russell's response to the Minecraft movie, as well as the ongoing battle against the forces of Satan, and also the potential health benefits of kimchi, the Korean fermented cabbage food. But before we get into that, allow me to thank a new Awakening Wonder here. So, Carly, you are now an Awakening Wonder.
You are indeed an awakening wonder.
Thank you very much, Carly. And if anyone wants to support the show financially by becoming an Awakening Wonder, joining the Invisible Hand, or donating on an elevated tier, head to patreon.com/onbrand and sign up. And you will have my eternal gratitude, and you will be able to access additional content as well as a completely ad-free version of the show. Speaking of additional content, thank you for all the lovely comments about my music this week. That has been a very nice boost to my mood. Now then, what are we looking at on Stay Free with Russell Brand this week? Well, I should say that Russell is supposed to be in court in the UK tomorrow for the beginnings of his criminal trial. He is literally trying to stay free. So you may get a weekend update or something similar like that from me in the next few days, depending on the news. But obviously, whole situation is rather serious. And what with everything being, the horrors, says I, gesturing at literally everything except the Canadian election results, I thought we could look at something on the lighter side this week. Accordingly, we have another Thursday show from Russell, which will involve some input from yet more members of his crew, before he sneaks in a surprise pre-recorded guest interview that he hadn't announced. First, however, Russell plays a clip of some children doing some rather intense gymnastics, insinuating they should be doing that instead of staring at screens, before providing yet more reasons he really shouldn't be a parent.
Like, if you're a parent, that your kids are basically addicted to screens. Well, how do you handle that issue?
Kids doing gymnastics. What's happening here? Okay.
Turn them into little ninjas. Get them tooled right up for the world. Oh, that's what I want to do with my kids. I'm going to train those kids to survive. I'm going to get all Captain Fantastic about it. You've got to raise them like a cell, knowing that they're entering into a holy war.
So he's going to train his kids to survive, like little ninjas, presumably, and raise them like a cell, knowing they're entering into a holy war. It is fascinating how normalized this kind of thing has become on Russell's show, not just to demonstrate how far he's fallen, but also because I can guarantee if he or his audience ever saw, for instance, some Muslims spouting this same rhetoric of preparing their children to be a cell in a holy war, the audience would be pretty alarmed. But Christians doing it in Florida, well, that's just a Tuesday. Or Thursday, I suppose. And I say this as a parent of a 4-year-old. If you're concerned about screen time for your kids, the first thing you should do is put your fucking phone down when you are around them. It is something I have to constantly remind myself of, because kids model behavior. Also, in every piece of candid footage of Russell I've seen in the last 2 years, he's been practically glued to his phone, so just a thought. Maybe let's not worry about forcing kids into gymnastics regimes or forcing them to fight in a holy war, and instead we can just be a bit more present when we're around them. Anyway, I promised we'd hear from some of Russell's team here, and in discussing the viral trend of teenagers going nuts in cinemas when watching the new Minecraft movie, we hear from Russell's employee Massey, who is a knock off Gareth Roy. He's British, he's northern, has some terrible takes, and also a rather large forehead, which is very similar. And where the fuck is Gareth Roy?
I think it's like all of us are so restricted and constrained and overwhelmed and sort of like pissed off and like, I don't know how many genders are there again. Should we be in this war? What am I meant to believe in? Everyone just wants to go, chicken jockey, and smash up a movie theatre. Like, we can't take it. There's too much pressure being heaped up on us all the time. What are you saying, Massey?
It's like a mob mentality, basically, isn't it? It just takes one little spark and then everyone goes crazy. So you have, everything from like the George Floyd riots to then Minecraft. It's kind of, it's awesome.
Yeah, those are the same. Those are the same situations there. Teenagers throwing popcorn at the mention of the word chicken jockey is definitely the same as organized protests and in some cases riots over systemic racism in the United States. That's the same. Back to my question here. For real, where the fuck is Gareth Roy? Like, he was acting as series editor for the show, but back in the UK and making this whole thing work internationally. I know that for sure. I've seen it on the screen. And obviously, like, he's been off screen since the allegations against Russell came out, but with the rest of Russell's crew now taking up space on screen on the regular, with one of them even being British, Gareth Roy is conspicuously absent. I do genuinely wonder whether he jumped ship when criminal charges against Russell came about, or for some other reason. And it is a shame, because in case anyone's wondering why I have a constant idle curiosity over Gareth Roy's whereabouts, it's because he was the brains of the operation. Particularly back in the days when both he and Russell were on screen, he would be the one with the quote-unquote research, the stories, the talking points. He'd actually know the things. Like, if I've got a conniving shit like that running the hate machine, I have something to tackle, something to sink my teeth into. Whereas Russell's sitting there and going, what's a constitution then? Like, comparatively, how am I even supposed to deal with that? Alas, there is no sign of Gareth Roy, and so we are forced to contend with this knockoff version in Massey here. Dear oh dear. Now, so far we've seen 3 of Russell's staff on screen. Jake, Isaac, infamous Isaac, and now Massey. And I have to say, so far we are 0 for 3. I've not liked a single one, and it's painting a less than great picture of life at Stay Free with Russell Brand. Nonetheless, let's hear from a different member of Russell's crew, a chap called Luke. Maybe he can say something to save the day.
And it is interesting to sort of note that whether it's something like you said, Massey, that feels like idealistically significant, like racial equality or gender equality or whatever from across the spectrum, pro-life, pro-choice, people can get worked up about like Minecraft, man.
I think young people are meant to rally around each other and get fired up about things. And you talked about this in the show a couple days ago, that we've got a bunch of young men who are sitting around masturbating, getting high, playing PS5 all day instead of like spearfishing. And I think that the reason we've got young people that are getting fired up about Minecraft movie and putting all their energy into something like that is because that is what they do all day. They spend their time in front of a screen, masturbating, playing PS5 all day. And that's just a result of that mentality, I think.
Yeah, that's their mindset and that's their world. That's what they're spending their time staring at and therefore investing in.
Yeah. Nah, Luke, you fucked it, mate. That was that was a swing and a miss. You're trying to tell me I should go spearfishing instead of playing God of War Ragnarok, and your argument is not convincing. In one scenario, I have to put a strenuous amount of effort into savagely murdering a living creature, whereas in the other scenario, I get to sit on my couch in my dressing gown and fight the literal Norse gods while harming no actual living creatures. It's an easy decision on my part, that's all I'm saying. And don't come for getting high and masturbating all day. You can't compete with that. The Bible can't compete with that. Spearfishing certainly can't compete with that. It's literally a peep show quote. If people only did everything they wanted, everyone would spend all day sitting on the carpet watching the poker channel, wanking and eating those expensive German biscuits. And that is fucking true. Like, if you're going to try and convince me to do something, don't bring up better and more fun uses of my time. Especially if it involves expensive German biscuits. 0 for 4. Oh for 4. Not one likable crew member yet. This is just upsetting. There are more. So we can hold out hope, I suppose. To cap the Minecraft discussion off, Russell gets a bit depressed about the state of sensationalist online affairs before Massey comes back in with another terrible take.
It scares me a little bit because, you know, what we it makes me think like, here we are, we're trying to talk about political and cultural ideas, and actually people will be just as interested if we like played Minecraft or got our bums out. I mean, butts in American. Massey, maybe that's what we should do for the next episode.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. I think it's pretty interesting that, like, what else could you get kids to do in a movie theater? Maybe this is some like psyop from China or something. If you can get them to go crazy and smash up a movie theater just by showing something on screen, what could they do with TikTok one day? They just do something, a bunch of kids are together and they start actually smashing shit up. Maybe we'll look back at this moment in history. You know, like how people always say, they'll look back and they'll say World War III was started when they took the Donbass region, or it was on October 7th. Maybe they'll look back at this and they go, oh, the big revolution started during that Minecraft movie thing. That was the first one of those things that happened.
It's an MK Ultra plot to see if you can implant like hypnotic signals, at which point everyone rises up. You know when you read those things where they say all of the illegal immigrants they're all fighting age males. They're all actually members of an army. At some point there's going to be just some images going to flash up and they're all going to go, right, you're all under arrest. Native populations of Anglophonic countries. All of you round them up into some sort of convenient Minecraft prison. It's not a bad theory. It's a pretty good one.
Oh, good. Yes, let's finish off with some MK Ultra-inspired dog whistle-based fear-mongering over migrants, shall we? Fan-fucking-tastic. Firstly, Massey, what level of dipshit do you have to be to see kids throwing popcorn in a movie theater and be like, maybe it's a psyop from China? Like, not just a psyop, but a psyop potentially signaling the beginning of a mass conflict. Jesus Christ. And then Russell, like, just taking that ball and running with it in the worst possible direction. I distinctly remember around a year ago when Naomi Wolf came on Stay Free, and Russell was a little bit like surprised by her talking about there being thousands of fighting-aged males, all dressed the same with military haircuts crossing the border and being housed in airports around the United States. But these days he's insistent that actually, it's a pretty good theory. And not only that, these fighting-aged males are an army going to put native populations of Anglophonic countries under arrest and put them in Minecraft-like prisons. So, all English-speaking countries. For real, throw in some John Birch Society bullshit and this might as well be Alex Jones that we're looking at. This is unfucking hinged racism, like racist nonsense. That's what this is. Oh, fuck. Okay, now, from here we're going to look at the pre-recorded interview that Russell inserted into this Thursday's show, presumably so he could take a 20-minute break from the hard work he puts into his broadcasting. And I have to admit, I wasn't sure what to expect, because this is a character I had zero awareness of. The guest in question is a lady named Kim Bright, and, you know, let's just take a look at the first clip of their interview here.
Kim, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Kim, I understand that you feel that we're at a pivotal moment when it comes to Bobby Kennedy's power and implementation of that power, that we're in a significant moment for where potentially changes could take place at the level of government, but there is still opposition to it, even though you would argue, perhaps anyone would argue, that Trump's the most powerful man in the world now. He's in office with an incredible mandate. Bobby Kennedy's the head of the HHS. What possible resistance or challenges could there be?
Well, I think we've got to really call it like it is, Russell. We've got satanic forces on one side, that the bottom line and the money, that's what they're all about. And then we have the godly forces on the other side that are looking to make America great and healthy again. And they're going to fight. And they're at odds. They're exact opposites. And people have to realize that that's what we're dealing with.
Oh, fuck yeah. We have satanic forces against godly forces, and there's going to be a fight. This shit is like catnip to me. Like, there is something about old school talk of Satanism that I just love. I think it's because like I remember back in the 90s and like the early aughts when a lot of that rhetoric was really like prominent in the mainstream right. And back then it was super fucked up and causing a lot of problems. But like by today's standards, there's something almost very quaint about it, you know, like, oh, it's Luciferian, is it? Are your army of angels gonna rise up? Are they? Bless your little cotton socks. You know, particularly compared to things that fall out of the president's mouth on a daily basis. I'm like, this is comparatively a delight. Obviously, the moment she started talking about Satan, I had to look up who this lady was. So I'm like, wow, you have my attention. Let's see if you can capture my curiosity. And, well, she's a 70-year-old nutrition and wellness lady from Florida is what she is. And by nutrition and wellness, I mean crunchy granola type who seems to constantly be about 3 sentences away from telling me which crystal will fix my chakras and how conveniently she happens to sell that very type of crystal. I don't think she actually sells crystals by the by. She might, I don't know. But that's the kind of person that we've got here. And I'm going to read from her own personal bio here because it tickled me. So imagine the largest grain of salt known to man as I read this. Quote, Kim Bright is a pioneer in the nutrition industry and an expert in health and wellness. She has been featured on nationally syndicated and local radio and television shows since the 1980s, educating people on how to optimize their health. Kim has personally consulted over 15,000 people and has lectured groups all over the USA. Having studied with many well-known health experts and industry legends, Kim also attended and taught at the Cushy Institute in Massachusetts. Kim established a health center in Connecticut where she consulted and taught healthy lifestyle courses along with various health experts from all over the world. So, no name for the experts she learned from, no name of the health center, no apparent qualifications in any of this, and no word on what she's apparently lectured about. Alrighty, seems legit. In any case, the broader question Russell asked of, well, who is opposing Trump and RFK Jr. these days will come back later, but in the meantime, we get to hear about what else Kim Bright thinks is satanic.
I mean, witness the SNL skit they did on Donald Jesus Trump, and it's Easter week. It infuriated me that they're going to that length, and you know, it's just terrible how they're attacking people that are truth tellers that want to put in godly moral codes and, you know, live right and eat right, and they're attacking that. So, what is their real agenda? I think they're from Satan.
Oh, yeah, I mean, we're going to have to unpack that a little bit, Kim, before we get all the all the way to Lorne Michaels is from Satan. Because I remember I hosted that SNL once, and it was actually quite difficult, and it was bloody exhausting, actually.
I mean, yes, it's famously a very intense show to work on. That's like part of their whole thing. Nice to hear you actually did some work, though, Russell. That is a refreshing change of pace. Incidentally, I keep meaning to find Russell's episode of when he hosted SNL. Like, we might do that as a little Patreon treat at some point. Anyway, so SNL is from Satan, according to Kim Bright, because during Easter weekend, their cold open featured a biblical scene of Jesus kicking the money changers out of the temple before Donald Trump interrupts and begins comparing himself to Jesus and talking about tariffs and whatever else. Now, I don't think that's particularly offensive, but then again, I'm not Christian, so maybe that's easy for me to say. However, what I think I would find more offensive if I were Christian is that Trump has repeatedly actually compared himself to Jesus and also sells Donald Trump branded Bibles. That to me seems a mite more blasphemous, but Kim seems pretty cool with it, as do a lot of the Christian right. Regardless, SNL have a hidden satanic agenda because they're attacking quote-unquote truth-tellers like Donald Trump and RFK Jr. But Russell brings up something of a good point that, hey, we might not agree with what they're saying, but, you know, it's their right to say it. We've got to protect free speech, right?
But what I am interested in is, I obviously I'm Christian, but I believe in free speech as well. It's been kind of in some ways encouraging that that Trump has been so open and advocating for Christianity, the post that he made recently. This Holy Week, Christians around the world remember the crucifixion of God's only begotten Son, our Lord and Saviour Jesus Christ. On Easter Sunday, we celebrate his glorious resurrection and proclaim, as Christians have done for nearly 2,000 years, he is risen. Through the pain and sacrifice of Jesus on the cross, we saw God's boundless love and devotion to all humanity. And in that moment of his resurrection, history was forever changed with the promise of everlasting life. As we approach this joyous Easter Sunday,
Who wrote this? I
want to wish Christians everywhere a happy and blessed holiday. America is a nation of believers. We need God. We
Definitely
want God,
wasn't
and with
Trump.
his help, we will make our nation stronger, safer, greater, more prosperous, and more united than ever before. Thank you and happy Easter. Now, isn't that an indication that Christianity is where, most Christians would believe it belongs, at the forefront of people's mind, particularly at such a significant moment in the calendar, the week leading into Easter, Holy Week. And I would say that in a way, fine, SNL are going to be, critical or blasphemous. Me, as a sort of a believer in free speech, I would say I would never blaspheme myself unless by accident.
You do it all the time.
But I reckon that SNL should be allowed to if they want to, although I haven't seen the sketch myself yet.
Yeah, well, I believe in free speech too, but me, it's just, when you do those kind of things, you're tearing the country apart. Trump is putting it back together, and we have to really look at the intentions of people, if they really, what the actual intention is and what will be the outcome.
Yeah, if you're going to say I believe in free speech too, but then I think we're on a rocky road there for the free speech absolutists that the right are supposed to be. Okay, I mean, I agree that we need to look at what people's intentions are and what the outcome will be, and that free speech should have limits. There's a reason that the category of hate speech and incitement to violence and all of that exists. The issue is both Russell and Kim here are vocally supportive of a party and of people who consistently engage in hate speech against minorities of all types. But Kim here seems to draw the free speech line at a bit of blasphemy because it's tearing the country apart. And Donald Trump, well, he's trying to put the country back together, with tariffs and racism, the same way any country is unified in history. That's how it's always happened. Now, some of you may note that the Trump Easter post that Russell read out is not the one that caught the eye of the news cycle, because this was recorded a few days prior to that. I am, however, going to read out the full Easter Sunday message from Donald Trump, quote, because the tone is different, quote, "Happy Easter to all," and by the way, I believe he wrote this one, quote, "Happy Easter to all, including the radical left lunatics who are fighting and scheming so hard to bring murderers, drug lords, dangerous prisoners, the mentally insane, and well-known MS-13 gang members and wife-beaters back into our country. Happy Easter also to the weak," sorry, that was all caps, "and ineffective judges and law enforcement officials who are allowing this sinister attack on our nation to continue. An attack so violent that it will never be forgotten. Sleepy Joe Biden purposefully allowed millions of criminals to enter our country, totally unvetted and unchecked, through an open borders policy that will go down in history as the single most calamitous act ever perpetrated upon America. He was by far our worst and most incompetent president, a man who had absolutely no idea what he was doing, but to him and the person that ran and manipulated the auto pen, perhaps our real president, and to all of the people who cheated in the 2020 presidential election in order to get this highly destructive moron elected, I wish you, with great love, sincerity, and affection, a very happy Easter! 3 exclamation marks. Unquote. Now that one he wrote. I believe that came straight from the mouth of Donald Trump. Oh God, and yeah. Stuff that Joe Biden did, that's the most calamitous thing in American history. Worse than 9/11? Worse than all the fucking tariff bullshit that Trump has been doing? Oh God, remarkable. It's if he wasn't in charge of anything, it would be much funnier. But still. Yeah. Those are also those are really the words of a guy invested in bringing a country together, you know? I also just love that he still won't shut up about Joe Biden. Like, dude, you weren't even running your campaign against Joe Biden by the end. Why are you still so fucking obsessed? It's very pathetic. Anyway, from here we move to the subject of RFK Jr. and his intentions.
And I think with RFK Jr., his intention is to expose all the poisons that have been put in our food. He's being attacked for, telling the truth. He's got background in all of this. So he really understands our food supply. And I think that, all of the dangers of the vaccinations of the mRNA, nobody's, they're still being ignored. And, just because if you didn't get vaccinated doesn't mean you're avoiding, getting the shedding and everything else there. And he's, I think that he really is going to change things. And I think that we've got to change things in the food. They're using mRNA vaccines in our meats, in our poultry. They're inserting it into the food supply because they think that's the good thing to do. But really what it is let's let the cattle, the chickens and everything have more room to roam and fix their guts. I mean, just recently they're starting to use seaweed, which is loaded with minerals, to help with cow flatulation, where they thought all the methane was coming from when it's actually from their burping. So the answers are really back in nature, what God put on the planet, not in, all these chemicals and vaccinations. This is what I believe in. I believe that if we eat as God intended, and we eat organically, and we clean up our skies and our water and our food supply, which I think RFK Jr. is really going to do, we are going to have much better health all the way around.
So, interestingly, the stuff about cows producing most methane from burping and about feeding them seaweed to reduce their methane emissions is all true. Turns out feeding cows seaweed reduces their burping and is good for them and means their bodies contain more iodine, which is then passed on to the people who eat the cows or drink their milk. So a number of cattle farmers are doing this to reduce carbon emissions. As for mRNA, or as Kim Bright calls it, mNRA, vaccines in cattle and poultry, all that is scientists trialing out mRNA vaccines on farmed cattle and poultry to potentially combat bird flu. It's not something that's approved for the actual market in any way. It's not reached that stage at all, but it's an avenue that's being explored. For those of us old enough to remember when mad cow disease was a thing, or foot and mouth in the UK, I'm from a farming community that affected things pretty significantly around here, you'll be able to see why potentially vaccinating livestock is a preferable alternative to all of them getting a very horrible disease and then having to be slaughtered en masse for having said disease. That said, also, for anyone not liking the image of thousands of cows being slaughtered, maybe ask yourself a couple of questions as to how chill you are with the meat industry in general, and how chill you are with animals being slaughtered for the sake of dinner, which does lead me to my other point, which is like, if you truly believe that the food supply is poisoned, that the soil is poisoned, that the water supply is poisoned with fluoride, that livestock and poultry are vaccinated up to the gills, which will then somehow vaccinate you if you eat them. If you believe that, why in the fuck are you not vegan? Like, what? I don't understand how, if you genuinely believe all of those things, if you like, and it's especially with the vaccinations and the livestock and the blah, 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 like, how can you justify just being like, well, I'm gonna have a burger now, like, surely if you think it's poison, you would not be eating it. And in case anyone thinks I missed it, RFK Jr., he's a fucking idiot who knows nothing about nothing, and I've proven that more times than I would care to admit. But also, I don't want you all to think that I missed what she said there about the dangers of people shedding, where even if you're unvaccinated because of people shedding, you might still be at risk of something. What the fuck is shedding? Well, I will let Russell ask the question because he didn't know either.
Yeah, I agree with you. I was surprised to hear you say that even if you've not taken the vaccine, you feel that you're still at risk of exposure. I can see your point that if it gets into the food supply, then anyone who eats that food would be at risk. What do you
Well, no,
mean by shedding?
Russell, shedding is when you're near somebody that has had the vaccination and they cough on you, or they cough near you, or they speak and it actually comes out, and you have sex with them. You can get shedding.
Kim, slow down. 1 minute you're standing next to him, the next minute you're having sex. What we obviously need is some sort of social distancing. I'd say 6 feet. Possibly people should wear masks as well. Hopefully those masks will protect people. What a delicious irony and what a journey we're going on. I've heard people talk before about the potential that the vaccines might have a reach even beyond those that, volunteered, and I use that word loosely, to take them.
I shit you not. I have watched this clip 6 or 7 times, and every single time it has cracked me up. Okay, so firstly, Russell is signing on to this idea, so keep that in mind. The concept seems to be that vaccines are transmissible, according to this lady, and they're transmissible through mucus droplets and other bodily fluids. Particularly the vaccine she references throughout this interview is all the varieties of the COVID-19 vaccine. So according to her, the COVID-19 vaccine is transmissible via coughing and speaking and sex. Which begs the question as to why we'd ever need, so many vaccines in the first place. Surely if you're in a couple or whatever, just one of you could get the vaccine, and then when you make out or have sex, it'll also be transmitted over to the other person. Surely that's how that would work in this concept. It's preposterously dumb. And as Russell points out, it sounds like it spreads in much the same way that COVID-19 spreads, which, were that a reality, would be fan-fucking-tastic, by the way, but very obviously, that is not the case. The death toll from COVID over this past winter does kind of make that point. Cripes. Anyway, so every line of bullshit has a nugget of truth in it somewhere. And obviously Kim Bright is not the first person to spout this idea. She's regurgitating something she's seen online. So where does it all stem from? Well, there is a thing called vaccine shedding. Essentially, it's a form of viral shedding which can very occasionally occur following a viral infection caused by an attenuated or live virus vaccine. Illness in others from transmission through this type of viral shedding is very rare. Shedding is only possible with an attenuated live virus vaccine. It is impossible with other vaccine technologies, such as inactivated vaccines, viral vector vaccines, RNA vaccines, which contain no virus at all, or subunit vaccines. Only a small number of vaccines use technology that contain a live virus which can theoretically infect other people. And with the exception of the oral polio vaccine, there have been no documented cases of vaccine-induced viral shedding that has infected contacts of a person vaccinated with an attenuated live virus vaccine. So it's happened. It's happened once. And to be clear, none of the COVID-19 vaccines are live virus vaccines at all. But of course, this dose of reality did not stop the anti-vax movement clinging on to this idea back in 2021, where this whole dumb thing reared its head once more, and now this lady's sticking to it, and Russell is like, yeah, wow, I have heard of this. It is truly dumb fuckery abounds. Speaking of dumb fuckery, Russell asks again, who could possibly oppose Trump and RFK Jr. now, unless the center of power lies elsewhere? Basically implying, well, the deep state keep on getting in Trump's way. That's why there are problems happening. It's the deep state. But Kim has a slightly different answer.
But do you not feel that this is a point where Trump's in office, Bobby Kennedy's the head of the HHS? Are you concerned that even in a position of power, they won't have the authority to make the kind of changes that are necessary? Do you think that real power is therefore situated somewhere else beyond them? I would have seen this as a sort of a moment for celebration for people that are just straight up Trump MAGA supporters.
Oh, yes, I do believe what you just said, but also we have to understand there are other forces at work. And I believe that Trump has the hand of God on him. So I think ultimately things will work
Does he
out
now?
in that direction. But I think it's not going to be an easy road to hoe, because you're talking about the other people that what's important to them is power and money. They're not concerned about people's health. They're not concerned about what the end result is with our health, and they're all about keeping us on this sick train and not a health train. And Bobby Kennedy Jr. and Trump, I think, really is about making everything better. I mean, if you look at, we're inundated with the TV commercials, Russell. We're inundated with the pharmaceutical commercials. And when you hear something over and over and over again, it goes in as truth.
I mean, she keeps saying these single sentences that in isolation I agree with, right? It's what makes people like this dangerous. Like, they keep saying a thing that on its own sounds reasonable. Like, if you hear something over and over again, it goes in as truth, right? That's how fucking propaganda works. Like, if I heard enough times a day that I could somehow catch a vaccine through shedding, I might start to believe that bullshit. It's why Trump assigns everything and everyone a nickname. Oh, it's the failing New York Times, because regardless of their subscriber numbers, as long as he keeps saying it, people will associate the New York Times with failing, and therefore, discredited. Same with Sleepy Joe Biden, regardless how sleepy he may or may not be, though that one seems more accurate in fairness. And the other thing she said that I agreed with there was that, hey, the US is inundated with TV commercials from pharmaceutical companies, and how fucked up that is. Like, yeah, there's a reason that shit is banned in Europe. Then again, most of Europe has socialized medicine to a degree, so there's less of a need for that in general. But still, really messed up. Real weird to me. Of course, what I do take issue with is the idea that RFK Jr. is going to fix everything. So far, his only plans have been to defund the departments responsible for regulation, as well as departments that track viruses and shit, as well as wanting to tag and track autistic people with the aim of potentially putting them all into camps. Which, by the way, is something he's been going on about for quite some time. I remember, at least 18 months ago, I remember talking about this. He aims to deregulate everything, make a shitload of money, get rid of vaccines by any means necessary, and he has eugenical views on the very concept of autistic people existing. I'm not quite sure how that's supposed to be the health train. And not to forget, Kim here kicked off at SNL being supposedly blasphemous during Easter week for their Donald Jesus Trump skit, basically arguing that even free speech shouldn't protect such a thing. And now she's saying that Trump has been touched by the literal hand of God, which only reinforces the point they were making. So sometimes all I can do is despair at what must be a mountain's worth of cognitive dissonance piling up in these people's brains. It's gotta be tough in there, In any case, from here, Kim gets onto some home territory and starts to talk about the stuff she's supposed to know more about.
And so people have to disabuse themselves of those ideas that we've heard over generations, and really understand that true health is, it all starts in your gut. 70 to 80% of your immune system is in your gut. And we have that microbiome in our gut that needs to stay healthy. We've got to have a good balance there of good guys and bad guys, just like the soil. But with pouring all the poisons in the soil, the herbicides, pesticides, those destroy the microbiome in the soil. So if we raise plants out of sick soil, we don't get healthy. And so we need to have a way to grow organically and have the plants have a very diverse microbiome in their soil, so we can get that diverse microbiome in us, which is the good guys outweigh the bad guys, the fungus, the molds, the yeast, the parasites. So paying attention to our gut is very important to our health, because the gut is where everything starts. We have a gut brain axis, we have a gut skin axis. You have any kind of skin conditions, it ties back to the gut. You have brain fog, it ties back to the gut. If you have hormone problems, it ties back to the gut. We have the gut hormone axis. So the gut is key to our health. It is our core.
As mentioned, I have a 4-year-old daughter. And you know how some people, like kids in particular, are like they can be really bad at lying because you can just see it on their face. That is the exact face that Kim Bright is pulling right now. Like the face of like, hey, I just threw out a bunch of bullshit, but so apparently the gut is the key to a healthy brain, skin, hormones. It's actually the key to literally all of human health, apparently, which is fascinating because it does make me wonder why we even bother studying other branches of medicine if that is the case. You know, why would we need to? You know, if your hormones can be sorted out, like fucking hell, trans people. It turns out you don't need to worry about getting on T or on estrogen. You can just do stuff with your gut, and that will deal with the hormone situation. Who knew? Now, just a quick rapid-fire debunk here. 70 to 80% of your immune system is not in your gut. You have a lymphatic system, thymus, bone marrow, spleen, adenoids, mucous membranes. There's a lot going on. The immune system is made up of a lot of interconnected bits. However, 70 to 80% of immune cells are present in the gut, so that's what she's misusing here, which is part of why gut health is actually important. That it is important, I'm not going to deny that, but your gut is not 70 to 80% of your entire immune system. Again, if that were the case, why would we study anything else? Immunologists would just be gut experts, and that's it. As for herbicides and pesticides, some of them are bad, some of them are fine. There are actually pesticides and herbicides made of natural ingredients. That's a thing. If you're interested, take a look at which pesticides and herbicides are banned in the EU but still allowed in the USA, and that will give you an indicator as to what to be concerned about in the US. Now, soil does have a microbiome in the sense that, well, microbes exist in soil, and some herbicides and pesticides can fuck with that. But here's the thing. Soil health is generally something that farmers will take pretty fucking seriously because their entire livelihood depends on it. I say this again as someone who has grown up in a farming community surrounded by farms and farmers. They will not be spraying shit on their crops that will irreversibly damage their soil because it will make their land worthless and destroy their farms. And that's something that big ag isn't going to do either, because at the end of the day, destroying your own means of growing a product is not how you make money. There are reforms that can be made within agriculture in the US, but like this is just an absurd rhetoric right here. And otherwise, apparently, we need a constant fight between the good guys and the bad guys in our gut. And the bad guys are the fungi, mold, yeast, and parasites, which is terrible news for anyone who might enjoy some sourdough toast with mushrooms and blue cheese. Parasites, sure, I'm willing to concede that parasites are bad. Just ask RFK Jr.'s brainworm. But the rest of it, I think, is a touch more complex than Kim Bright either knows or is willing to admit. So, throughout this interview, I kept asking myself, like, why is this lady here? Why are we listening to her about things? You know, she's not one of the big swinging dicks that Russell usually likes to talk to, and he is generally reluctant to speak to women in general on his show unless he wants to fuck them. And my question got answered in this next clip.
I wonder if you feel then that a big agriculture in the United States of America needs to be regulated, reformed, significantly controlled. And can you tell me how that the broader agricultural arguments impact you, particularly because you're here in your capacity as a representative of Kimchi 1, which I guess is a supplement that's derived from fermented foods. I drink a bunch of kombucha. I've started taking this Kimchi 1, your recommendation.
There it is. Kim Bright is here as a representative of Kimchi 1 and Bright Core Nutrition. This interview is a paid ad, a paid partnership, and in this very show there were 2 actual ads from Russell for Kimchi 1. We'll get into what the hell that is in just a moment, but as a broad tip, in case anyone needs to hear it, if someone ever starts to give you medical or nutritional advice in particular, just do a quick check to see what it is they're trying trying to sell you, or if they've been sold a line of bullshit themselves, because that happens very frequently too. Speaking of bullshit, let's hear a little bit about Kimchi 1.
What is the analogy and connection between what you just said about the soil and what you said about the gut? Because it sounds to me like the kind of thing that would be pretty difficult to reverse.
Well, yes, it's going to be difficult to reverse because it's been going on for so long, but we have to start somewhere. And kimchi is a food that's been used for centuries in Korea, and it's a fermented food. And I've been helping people with their health for almost 50 years, Russell. And so this is very important to understand that one of the most important foods that you can eat, like you take kombucha, that's fermented. So we're supplying our gut with beneficial bacteria when we eat fermented foods. But kimchi has over 900 different probiotics, and it has these unique strains that aren't found in sauerkraut or kombucha or any other fermented foods. And so kimchi is the king of fermented foods. And we were able to take that and put it in a capsule because Americans have very different palates and they smell things differently than the Koreans do. They're not used to eating kimchi every day to help their gut. And so by taking it in a capsule, it's convenient. And by taking it in a capsule, you don't smell or taste it. It has different chilies and garlics and gingers and shrimp paste and fermented cabbage and all these things in it that people aren't used to that smell in America, but yet they want the results from it. So that's why we created it.
Okay, Americans, you smell things differently. Apparently, that's interesting. Also, like shrimp paste, that is something that can be included in actual kimchi, like as is fish oil, but they're not like necessary components. And on the website for Kimchi 1, their product is listed as being vegan, but she's here chatting about shrimp paste and whatnot. I'm like, I think if you're vegan, the best bet is to treat food supplements with extreme degrees of suspicion, like you have to with the rest of the food aisles, to be fair, but even more so when they don't have to, like, tell you things. And also, like, for real, why do manufacturers put milk powder in literally fucking everything? Anyway, Kimchi 1 is, as you heard there, kimchi that has been freeze-dried, ground down to a fine powder, and then put into capsules. Because apparently American palates can't cope with Korean food. Not like Korean restaurants are doing pretty well in the US or anything. Kimchi is a relatively cheap food that is, of course, very common in Korea and Asia more broadly, and it's made of cabbage, usually Korean radish as well, and then often we'll have chilies, ginger, and whatever else people feel like adding to it. If you're making it yourself, like, which is quite simple to do, you can just put whatever you feel like in. There are all kinds of different types, and it's then like left in a jar for a week or more to ferment. Flavor-wise, think sauerkraut, but like a bit tangier and spicier. I can get a jar of the stuff from my local supermarket for about £2, which would be like $2.50 to you liberated freedom lovers across the Atlantic. Whereas, how much does Kimchi 1 cost? Well, if I wanted to buy one bottle with 30 servings in it, which is 90 capsules, as each serving is 3 capsules, supposed to be taken daily, that would cost $64.94 plus shipping. That amounts to roughly $2 per serving, so $2 a day for this stuff. Again, I could just buy an actual jar of kimchi for that price and get a lot more than 3 small capsules worth. And when it comes to kimchi having more probiotics than sauerkraut, they have different concentrations of them due to different ingredients and whatnot. Her saying kimchi has over 900 that just aren't found in other fermented foods like sauerkraut or kombucha is patently false. Also, not to nitpick, but so far she's called mRNA vaccines MNRA, National Rifle Association vaccines, and she's just called kombucha kombuchu. Now, we all say things funny at times, Lord knows I have, but if you're trying to sell me a product that is supposed to clear up a brain fog and then can't pronounce kombucha, a 3-syllable word, forgive me for being a little bit skeptical. Anyway, powdered kimchi capsules. That's what we're here to sell to the masses today, and we're going to do that apparently by making a whole bunch of health claims.
And daily consumption leads to better gut, better digestion, better absorption, cleaning up skin conditions, brain fog goes away, digestive issues goes away. We've even looked at studies on hair where they've eaten kimchi and the hair is growing back. Men that have severe male pattern baldness called alopecia, it's growing back. The hair follicle actually is getting thicker. And same thing with women. They did a test on adults from, I think they were age 20 to 65, and it happened very rapidly. It was over a 4-month period.
So the study she's talking about was a clinical pilot study done on 46 people in Korea back in 2020. Supposedly, 63% of those individuals in the study showed a higher hair count and thicker hair after 4 months of consuming 80 milliliters of mogut, which is daily, which is a kimchi and cheonggukjang probiotic product. They were having that twice a day, right? Cheonggukjang is made of soybeans, for the record, and so this is a product that is it's not just kimchi. It's also a drink. It's not the thing that Kim here is selling, is my point. Because also she's selling fucking capsules of kimchi, and that's different on its own. Anyway, as for talking about better gut, better digestion, skin conditions, and whatnot, here's the thing. There are a bunch of studies that have been done on kimchi, usually in Korea, funnily enough, and most of them show health benefits to eating kimchi daily. But the very clear majority are small, unreliable studies, and when a review was conducted on randomly controlled trials involving kimchi back in 2023, only 11 of the 111 studies ended up being reliable enough for use. And even then, the conclusion ended up being, hey, there needs to be more research done on any of this to make definitive health claims about it. But it has been found that eating kimchi is generally beneficial for people's health. And like, no shit, it's vegetables. Eating vegetables every day is good for you. That is not news. And fermented vegetables that have been a thing for thousands of years can be quite good for your gut. Good stuff. Okay. Dear. Now, from more, we go from more blatant health claims to some weight loss claims as well.
Also, obesity. This is very good for obesity because they did studies on obesity and BMI and also on the actual gut microbiome because they took fecal samples while they were on the kimchi. And they saw that it improved their gut health, and they saw that their waist circumference and their BMI went down significantly. So this food is so vital and important to have on an everyday basis. It's going to boost your immune system, boost your metabolism, your energy levels, your blood sugar levels are changed.
Consider this your friendly reminder that a boosted immune system is literally an autoimmune disease. Don't fall for that bullshit. Now then, a study was done in October 2024 on 90 individuals who took kimchi supplements to see what the weight loss results would be. And in this limited study, it was shown to suppress weight gain. Crucially, again, this was done in Korea, and the placebo group in the study were deprived of the kimchi that they would usually be consuming, and so gained weight. Yeah. You know, stop eating as many vegetables and you'll probably gain weight. You know, you're getting less fiber, less of all the good stuff. That sounds correct. Yeah, that makes complete logical sense to me. Oh dear. And here's the other thing with this one. In the study, the participants were given 3,000 milligrams of kimchi supplements per day, which amounts to about 30 grams of actual kimchi, apparently. For kimchi 1, the total serving size of the 3 capsules is 1,500 milligrams. So each capsule is 500 milligrams. You have to take 3, right? And so that amounts to half of what was used in the study. So You'd need double the serving size to replicate the potential effects of this study and have them come into place. And that would be costing you $4 a day for 30 grams of kimchi capsules. Or you can just buy like 200 grams of the stuff for like $2 and that will last you almost a week. Like, this whole thing is fucking ridiculous. And now we move to the final raft of health claims that Kim wants to make.
And people that have post syndrome from taking the COVID shots. We've got some people that called us in and said that after they made the decision to take the COVID vaccine, they had strange lingering symptoms, and they couldn't sleep, they couldn't think. They had aches and pains. They couldn't digest right. They had bloating. Their mood was bad. And after taking our Kimchi One, that all changed. And so we've got so many stories like that.
Again, like that liar face has come back. Just the, it really is quite shockingly obvious when she knows she's lying. Of course, I can't refute what she's saying because it's anecdotal nonsense, but the notion that Kimchi One somehow helps with your health post-vaccination sounds like some bullshit to me, especially as, like, vaccines can sometimes give you a rough ride for a couple of days. My last COVID booster shot most certainly did, but I was fine after 72 hours, right? There is every possibility that someone who had just gotten vaccinated was having a tough time, called Kim up, and she said, "Quick, buy my supplements!" And the symptoms naturally went away within a few days anyway, but Kim here is trying to claim correlation and causation are the same thing, and that Kimchi One made people sleep, able to think, got rid of aches and pains, digestive issues, bloating, and bad moods. Whereas actually the vaccine just did its thing and whoever it was fine after a few days because that's what your body is designed to do. Or none of that happened and what we're dealing with here is a supplement hawking huckster, which Occam's razor tells me is the more likely scenario. Now, Russell finally has to interject in order to tell us how racist he isn't.
At the very end of the beginning, you talked about American palates being different from Korean palates. It was very hard for me not to stop you in your tracks to do some subpar and potentially racist jokes about eating dogs. I resisted it, of course, because I'm a professional man in many ways.
Fucking hell. Yeah, I'm not willing to give you credit for not saying something racist. In general, like that's not, no. And I'm doubly not willing to do so when you just said the racist thing anyway under the guise of, oh, look how good I am for not being racist. Jesus Christ. So now Russell has a reasonable question about the veracity of the health claims that Kim Bright has been making. Because they've been pretty extreme so far, before he veers wildly off course back towards the racism.
Now, a lot of things you described there sounded like anecdotal rather than clinically proven evidence. Now, I believe that by achieving harmony with nature, it's just common sense, our health will improve. I believe that gut health is super significant, that there's a kind of brain in the gut, that there's a brain in the heart. I believe in all of that. Do you feel like with Jay Bhattacharya now at the NIH and Marty Makary at the FDA and Dr. Oz running the CMS and Bobby Kennedy running the HHS, that different methods and measures and modalities like this will get a fair chance? And have you got anything that amounts to scientific evidence, particularly with pretty audacious claims like, ending male pattern baldness, reducing, helping people lose weight, reversing the impact of a vaccine? These are pretty bold claims.
Those are clinical studies that I just on skin and health hair. And that is found on different sites. Government sites have those studies. There was also a study that was published in ScienceDirect.com, and that's on the levels of obesity, reducing that. There are so many studies in Korea that show what kimchi can do for those things that I just addressed. So yes, they're backed up with studies.
Korean scientists, we can't trust these crazy Koreans. As far as I know, they're no better than those Wuhan laboratories. I know Korea's not China, but it's too close for us to be able to relax when it comes to laboratorial methods.
Jesus fucking Christ. Like, here's the thing. When I put out the episode Russell Leans into Racism a few weeks ago, I didn't quite twig that it would be across the board and continuous from now on. Like, he just straight up has stopped giving a shit. He's like, nah, I'm just gonna say all the dog whistly bullshit that I remember being told back in the 70s. That's what I'm gonna do. Fuck me. Ah, dear. And to clarify what Kim said there are studies done on kimchi, usually on the actual food that is kimchi, by the way, not supplements, because that does make a difference in terms of health effects and whatever else, right? Like, eating the actual food is fundamentally different to eating a capsule, but there are studies. It's just literally none of them say the things she's saying they say. It's like when there's some bullshit headline from the Daily Mail or whatever, or Fox News, saying like radishes give you cancer, and then it turns out there was a guy who ate a radish once and then got cancer a week later, and that's all the story actually is. She's reciting headlines for her sales pitch, is what she's doing. And yeah, there are absolutely zero studies relating to kimchi treating people after getting vaccinated, just to make that one super clear. Anyway, Russell gets to talking about how he's now taking Kimchi 1 in what I'd describe as a less than enthusiastic endorsement while he takes a capsule on camera, and it then leads to him revealing his skepticism of actual medicine.
Hey, no, listen, I've took one just now. How many have I got to take?
Well, you should take 3, because that is going to give you the same amount that they used in these studies. That's the
every day.
Every day you want to take your fermented foods. The Koreans eat kimchi every meal, Russell. Some of them every single meal. That's what keeps them healthy.
Are they healthy though? All right, so this is number 3. It's the third one.
Oh, he's taking a second one on camera.
Oh.
Can you taste it? Can you smell it?
Yeah, I actually could feel something coming out of it that I weren't that sure of. Yeah, I'm interested in the results, and I feel like I'm a person that won't take antibiotics now unless it's a pretty serious situation. My cynicism towards big farmers near total and absolute. Not that I don't believe in the medical establishment and that I don't know loads and loads of brilliant doctors, like the doctors who saved my son's life through surgery, or the brilliant doctors that worked on my mum the many times that she had cancer. But that don't mean I foreclose on the possibility that my mum's cancer was likely caused by a combination of bad diet, bad media, and living in a very, very stressful environment. I feel like the kind of studies that don't get done for a reason.
For the record, there are tons of studies revolving around health outcomes for people of the lower classes compared to the middle class and above, right? Because Russell grew up working class, his mum was working class, holding down multiple jobs, right? And these studies universally show that health outcomes are much worse for those in poverty because of a lot of the reasons that Russell just said. Like, the studies have been done and are continually being done. If you're working class, you are more likely to develop cancers and whatever else. Except for bad media. How that one's supposed to give you cancer, I'm not quite sure. Though if there were a carcinogenic media out there, my guess is that like Russell and his peers would fall into that category from just like the sheer amount of rage bait and bigotry. They would, the tip of it would be Joe Rogan, and anything further right than that is like, yep, this is carcinogenic now. Ah, dear. At any rate, Russell is perfectly content taking kimchi supplements from this random lady who's paying him to do so, but antibiotics, which are probably the most important medical development of the last 2 centuries, well, they need to be met with skepticism. Now, don't get me wrong, you should only take antibiotics when you really need to, because we have a problem with antibiotic resistances developing in people. But leave that decision up to your doctor. Like, antibiotics are fucking wondrous things, and Russell is, as per usual, talking out of his ass. So, his endorsement of Kimchi One there was less than inspiring, and that continues here as he tries to turn the conversation back to satanic forces, and Kim is just not playing ball.
Mate, earlier you talked about the fact that in a sense we've fallen to Luciferianism, and one of the sort of passages from scripture that you'll be familiar with that's often cited when discussing that is Ephesians, out of Ephesians 6 and Ephesians 6:12 specifically, for we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this age, against spiritual hosts of wickedness in the heavenly places. That's before St. Paul advocates for us wearing the full armor of God, as well as that sort of chapter, or at least verse, that seems to be saying that there are dark powers that control reality. I've heard some people say that descriptions of demonic and parasitic forces sound a lot like biological parasites. What do you think about that, mate? The idea that sort of when there's talk of demonic forces, they have a physical component, that they're not entirely spiritual and could be regarded as, you know, vampiric little entities sucking away on us. I've burped a couple of times there. But that might be the kimchi.
It's working. It's working.
It's already happening.
It's happening. It's destroying those parasites and the yeasts and the molds and the fungus in you.
Is it really?
Yeah.
I hope so. What do you think about that? Do you think sometimes that there are scriptural verses that are describing biochemical realities that at that point they didn't have the ability to discern or observe?
I agree.
Yeah. And all right then. So
Kim. The game is yes and, not just yes. Like, you need to add things to the conversation in these situations. Russell Brand is asking you what you think of the idea that parasites are actually literal demons as described in the Bible. Like, you can't just say, I agree, and leave it at that, you know? Like, give me some demonic names. Give me some real Revelations end-time shit. If we're in a holy war, like you said, and there are literal demonic parasites inside people, now is the time to really spread that message, because also you'd think it was information people needed to know, you know? If you believe that one, that's gotta be important. I've got to say, the one area this theory makes complete sense is with RFK Jr. Like, oh, he got a demonic worm in his brain and it took over. That completely explains the entire of his existence. Like, this is something I could potentially get on board with. Also, side note, Russell doesn't seem to believe in the healing powers of kimchi just yet. Is it really doing that? Yeah, of course. Yeah, okay. And now we have the final clip of the day, which ends the show about as strangely as it began.
Well, at least there's a good many more reasons to be optimistic now than there ever have been previously. Trump is in office. He, unlike all people, he is fallen and broken. But I pray too that he has the hand of God upon him. Certainly, Bobby Kennedy, I know, is a man of deep integrity and authenticity. I'm in a sort of position to at least have personal testimony when it comes to Secretary Kennedy. And my prayer is that this is a time of healing for America. Thank you for our partnership, and thank you for this free sample. I can tell you now that it's made me burp some, but I hope that my gut biome is rearing up with the power of an archangel even as we speak. Kim, it's good that your name's Kim, isn't it? And that you're advertising kimchi. That's convenient. Do you think that influenced you into it on some level?
Well, you know what? You know what Kim means in Korean? It means gold, and chi is energy or life. So you have just ingested golden life.
Oh, thank the Lord. Thank the Heavenly Father.
There you go. There you go. But you know what? I'm 70 years old, and I am beaming with health. And
you're looking good, mate.
Thank you. Got some muscle here, everything. But the whole thing is taking care of yourself. I've been eating organic and teaching people for almost 50 years how to take care of themselves. So I know a little bit. And I've been Maha before Maha was around. And And I, really
It's pretty
want
recent.
to help people, and I want them to understand. And back then they called me a quack. They said she didn't know what she's talking about. And yet it's all coming around and being shown as truth now. So what you eat is what you become, what you absorb is what you become. And we have to pay attention to our gut and our soil.
Praise the Heavenly Father.
Yeah, I'm sure no one will be calling Kim Bright a quack these days. There are no spurious medical claims and exorbitant prices here. No siree. Also, and I know I'm being somewhat pedantic, but Asian languages work differently to European languages, crazy as it might sound. And the word kimchi is not golden life, even if those two separate component words might mean those things. Kimchi comes from tim choi, which is a Middle Korean transcription of a Sino-Korean word, which literally means submerged vegetable. It then developed from tim choi to tim choi to tsim choi to tsim chui to kimchi over the ages. But I do have to admit it's much easier to sell golden life than it is to sell submerged vegetable. Oh, fuck. Well, that's the show for this week, everybody. I will keep you all updated on Russell's legal situation, if there are any developments, or if he simply doesn't show up to court. Who knows? There might be a weekend update, there might not. What I can say is that as of today, Thursday, May 1st, he broadcasted his show live from Florida mere hours ago, and he's told his audience to stay tuned for the regular broadcast next week. And I'm like, it's cutting it pretty fine for a flight to the UK and everything else. But maybe he will. Maybe that's what's going to happen. We shall see. In the meantime, take care of yourselves and each other. Thank you very much. I love you. Bye.
All right. I'm going to finish now because I'm hungry and I want to eat something. All right. Bye.